one Cronje, one sport from Cook Speaks. I'll tell you the name of the man, the gentleman, Jonty Rhodes. Samajh nahi aaya. Well, I'll say now, I am with Jonty Rhodes. Yeah, that excites you. So there is it. Jonty, welcome. Absolute pleasure to sit with Jonty Rhodes. And Jonty, what gets you to Bhopal, to Madhya Pradesh, to India?
Well, I get to India quite a lot. Obviously, cricket is something I'm passionate about, and I come back in various capacities, either as a coach or as a commentator. But currently, I'm also a director in a business, ESN, Evolution Sports Nutrition. This was conceptualized 13 years ago. I'm not the brand ambassador, as you can tell. I'm a director in the company, and we're launching new products that will be out in January. So obviously through the pandemic, gyms were shut down, a lot of our distribution network was disrupted in quite a big way. And just now that everybody's out and being active again, because that's pretty much what I'm about. You know, I'm somebody who was blessed with genetics passed down from both my parents, and with a family of 3 boys, we played all the sports, and I really appreciate the value of wellness and health in somebody. And it's, you know, it can be anything as long as you're moving. It's not just about going to the gym and lifting weights, which this is obviously products I'm here for currently with ESN, but it's about the movement. And I think the pandemic has showed us that we all need to, if we haven't started, we need to start moving. And if we are moving, keep moving.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And no better man than you who can tell keep moving, you know. A lot of affection with India. Yeah. Your daughter, you named her India. You have credited India with being very spiritual. You also shared a view on the post where you had a dip in the sacred river Ganges. So what made you, shift to India more toward the spiritual, that keeping your daughter? I remember one gentleman, a cricketer, Lara, naming his daughter Sydney, after he hit that beautiful 277 in Sydney. So he actually credited that innings to his daughter. So what made you keep the name India, and what are your affections and what do you like about India?
Well, I think 2 things. Firstly, just to go back, what do I like about India? To put things in perspective, I grew up in a racially segregated South Africa. Okay. Back in the days of the apartheid minority government, where it was a white regime, and I grew up with boys who looked the same as me, who spoke the same as me, had the same ideas as me, same philosophies. And post that, once South Africa became a democracy, we became the rainbow nation. But I still think there's sort of race issues in South Africa that are deep-rooted. The amazing thing about coming to India was that when I get here, I get on a bike, I borrow an Enfield. I like to be local, obviously, and then I ride out. Because if you come to India as a cricket player, you pretty much see it from you see the hotel, you see the airport, and you see the ground. Or you fly over 30,000 feet, or you're driving in the AC bus.
Yeah.
And that's it. So for me, it was a case of understanding or appreciating. The more I learn about other people, the more I learn about myself. And again, taking it back to the South African racially segregated context, I had no exposure or very limited exposure to people of other ethnic race groups. And so this is what, for me, has been an amazing learning opportunity for myself as an individual, as a human, is coming to India. Because I'm a across India, there is such diversity, but even within states, there's different dialects of the same language, there's different ways of doing food, and that's been an amazing journey for me. So my connect with India certainly wasn't the same when I was a player. It was pretty tough touring here, that's for sure. We struggled because we were accustomed to bouncy hard wickets, and suddenly we get here and it's slow. Very tough for us South Africans. But as a coach, where I've been able to get out of the hotel and spend time on the street, on the road, eating food on a roadside cafe, going out with bicycle rides, motorbike rides, that has been an incredible opportunity for me to grow. My wife is a yoga teacher, she's a qualified architect, she also practices Vedanta philosophy. So for her, when we named India, she had very spiritual reasons for naming India. For me, it was more a case of, on my motorbike, I would ride from Nariman Point to Wankhede Stadium. It's not very far every day, but for 2 months, that is our home base. And every day that I turned out on the bike, when I turned right down down Marine Drive, something different happened. So I think it was a good lesson for me, is that India, you can't have preconceived ideas or expectation. I think, as athletes, we always taught, seize the day, carpe diem. And for me, it was more a case of embrace the day. And that was something that India has certainly taught me. And working with some great cricket players, either on the field or in the commentary boxes, their children were put under immense pressure to follow their father's footsteps. Not going to mention names, you probably know who they are.
I'll not
But that was for me, was the reason why India for me was to be named India, is because even though she's a daughter, so she's not expected to play, well, possibly cricket, for South Africa one day.
She was born in Mumbai.
She was born in Mumbai and at Surya Childcare Hospital in Santa Cruz. But for me, it was India. This is your journey. So just like when I turned out, whatever happens on a daily basis, this is her journey. This is her ride. And I'm there to support it. I'm not there to try and shape her or send her along a particular path. So her journey, and as her father, I'm going to support it. My reason.
I think, as you rightly said, going back to the South African days, you got more freedom and you got a mixture of culture in India, as you rightly said. Okay. And thanks a lot, Jonty, for accommodating me in such a small frame of time, Your test career, I was just reading up your test career, 8 years, 1992-2000. You made your debut against India. I still remember your scores, if I'm not mistaken, you scored for 26 and 41 or something. For a man as fit as you, did the injuries plague you to shortening your career? I mean, 8 years? You played up only about 52 test matches?
Yeah, I have an ex-wife who at the time, we were very family orientated. We had just had our first daughter, and she's just finished in the US, Daniela. I mean, she was on a hockey scholarship, so she got the genes passed down from the mother and the father. But my ex-wife at the time just said, that's it, cricket and family don't mix. And she was right. I mean, it's very tough. But everybody was doing it because we had so many years of apartheid era economic and sporting sanctions that nobody had played any.
I'll just interrupt you. Jonty was the first cricketer ever to take leave for parents. Am I right?
Yeah.
The first cricketer in the history of the world. He took cricket to take care of his newly born child. So I think that's kudos to you.
Well, that was quite, and thank you, but it was also quite an interesting time because it was a case of, how do you actually can't combine family and cricket. And not many of us were thinking that the IPL was still 8 years down the way. Nobody had thought there was a career after cricket. So I worked for a bank. I have a Bachelor of Commerce degree, and it was a case of, if I keep prolonging my career, what is the point of that? So I retired from Test to be able to carry on playing one-day cricket because we were going to host the World Cup for the first time in South Africa in 2003. So I made a compromise with my wife at the time, just saying, okay, so I'll retire from Test. Even though I was playing my best Test cricket, I'd been dropped for 2 seasons. 2 years, 96 to 98, I was dropped from the side. I came back strongly. I had to work on some technical things, but cricket, most of the technique is from the shoulder to the head. It's all you have between the ears. So a little bit of technique and way more on the mental strength.
You should elaborate. You changed your technique in 1997. Very few people would be knowing. Jonty was selected for the South African hockey team. He was selected for the 1996 Olympics. And one of the reasons I think you changed your batting stance way back in 1997, as they said, because of your hockey flow, your bat used to come from the gully to the mid wicket.
Yes.
You changed that.
Yes, very much.
And then you averaged plus 50 ever after that. And your last score of Test cricket against Sri Lanka was 54. So you were actually at the peak of your career.
Yeah, I'm just.
But was it like this?
Definitely. So I was.
Why don't you tell something about your stance?
So I was very strong on the pull and on the cut because as a cross bat shots, because as a hockey player, also because I was low to the ground, I could get underneath the bounce. So anything back of the length, instead of trying to hit it, I mean, Herschel Gibbs was the first player that I saw hitting the ball over cover for 6. He was an incredibly talented young man. But for me, when we faced Shane Warne or the left arm spinners, it was actually easier for me to reverse hit the ball boundary than try and hit the ball over. We had Darryl Cullinan, who was an exceptional player, great talent, fantastic technique.
But he was always a scapegoat of Shane Warne.
Love Shane Warne. He was a good friend of mine, but Darryl Cullinan and him didn't see eye to eye. But it was amazing. So for me as a hockey player, yes, I had to change my backlift basically from going to backward point to make it a little bit straighter. And that was, cricket is a game of habit. So if you're thinking about where my hands, you forget to just watch the ball. And that took me 6 or 7 months to make it a habit. And then another whole season of domestic cricket, scoring first-class hundreds to get back in the test side, but I was still travelling with the South African team as a one-day player.
Okay.
Because the outside edge would go to third man for two.
Okay.
You know, but Test cricket, there's 3 slips in the gully, so the outside edge, you're gone.
Your reverse sweep, which you said, I think your first reverse sweep went for a 6.
I played a couple of reverse sweeps. I think I was the first player to hit one for 6, but not my first one.
Okay.
But it was actually Bob Wilmer. So you know, prior to Bob Wilmer coming to coach in South Africa in '95. Many of the commentators were talking about Jonty Rhodes, this sweeping, this orthodox sweeping. He should be stepping out. I mean, I couldn't read Murali. I couldn't read his loose. I didn't see the change in the action. So if you're not picking the turn, you can't step out with confidence. So for me to stay in the crease, sweeping was a lot better because now you had to bowl a fuller length or a shorter length. The same thing worked with Shane Warne, other than his flipper, which looked like it was coming short, which often did us because you were trying to pull or cut. So for me, it was an adaptation, but encouragement from Bob Wilmer, even though he wanted me to change my technique slightly. The encouragement was there, especially in the one-day cricket, to play not only the sweep, but also the reverse sweep. So I'm grateful for it.
Okay. A little sentimental question, if you don't mind. You and Hansie Cronje, 1992-2000, he's no more. We'll not talk about his negatives. How do you describe him as a player or as a captain?
Well, our journey goes back before '92. We were playing against each other from about 1984. So his state against my state at junior level. And then 1986 and 87, we were South African schools players together. He was the captain and I was the vice captain. So an incredible leader with natural leadership ability, but somebody who still worked at that leadership. Because leadership is a lot of it is inherent in you, but you still work at it. And I think that's where Hansie was incredible. We had Kepler Wessels, who was our first captain, and that was very traditional style of leadership. He'll tell you what to do and how to do it. You know, Hansie would sit down with you and discuss what he was needing from a middle order batter and touring England. He needs me to score so many runs or average, but not telling me how to do it. And that was a different style of leadership, was that he generated this self-motivating team because he almost gave the player the power to make his own choices and his own decisions. Because when you're on the field, you can't wait for the captain to tell you. It's too late. You need that. You need the confidence and the backing, or the feeling that you've got the backing of the captain when you go out and play, because you have to make on-the-spot decisions. And if you're second-guessing your decisions, you're in trouble. So that, from a leadership point of view, Hansie really understood that each player was totally unique and different. You know, Lance Klusener, we saw him batting under incredible pressure. The look on his face was totally calm. But he was my roommate for 3 years. He never said 2 words to me. So he was just a quiet, calm guy. Hansie didn't try and change it. The rest of us were running around, playing.
He was calm chap.
Lance Klusener was just, at all times, also very shy. He grew up on a farm.
Lance Klusener was shy?
Very shy. He liked to go fishing, he liked to go hunting on his own. So in a team environment, he just kept to himself. And nobody forced him to be this or more energetic or more noise. Lance Klusener, you do what you do on the field, and you just be Lance Klusener. And that was Hansie's leadership. He encouraged each player. I mean, a team has got 11 unique abilities and characters, and you've got to harness that and make that work together. And I think that was Hansie's leadership. He was able to identify the individual strengths and needs of the players and supply that and encourage them.
South African always known as chokers by the press, not yet to win a coveted trophy, major trophy. Why is that? Such a lovely team, such a lovely combination. Why is it that the South African choke at the crucial junctures?
Well, it's been interesting. I mean, I've been a part of 4 World Cups from 1992 to 2003 in South Africa. I broke my hand in the second game, so I was sadly out.
That was against Kenya?
Against Kenya.
Morris Odombo?
Yeah, I was feeling a very short cover.
That made you end your career?
Well, I was going to resign or retire at the end of that World Cup anyway.
That was 2003.
So that was my last match. It ended up being my last match. They put a plate in my hand, hoping I would heal in 4 weeks and be able to continue with the Super 8. But then we lost matches, and then brought Graham Smith. Because in a World Cup, you only have a squad of 15, and you have to replace a player to bring somebody else in. So
that's interesting to note that after Jonty went off, it was Graham Smith who came in place of Jonty. That was way back in 2003.
2003. As a young player, he just made his debut against Australia, but the World Cup squad had already been announced, so Graham wasn't in that World Cup squad. He then took over the captaincy at age 22 at a very young age after that World Cup in South Africa. But I mean, it was, what was the question again? I've lost my
South African chokers.
Yeah, sorry, you see, I've lost it. But having been in 4 World Cups, 92 the rain came down for 10 minutes, 96 Brown Lara scored 100. 1999, we tied the game
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Australia.
yeah.
You know, Lance Klusener, but Australia should have won it with 3 overs to spare.
Exactly.
They really should have. Lance Klusener was dropping the boundary ball in for 6. So I've been in 4 World Cups and people say, "Oh, you guys choked," and I never once felt like we've gone out there and we've.
It was never a feeling with you all that
Never,
you would-
never. So I mean, they even got to the stage where they had a sports psychologist and they just said, "Do you need?" And we said no, because you know. But the crazy thing is that if you start, because cricket is a game of habit, your thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become habits, and often your habits will shape a destiny. It was Steve Waugh who started way back in 1998, I think, because Australia were the first team that had a. Mark Taylor was the captain of the Tests. Steve Waugh was the captain of the ODI. And Mark Taylor was very popular, very with the media. Outspoken, very friendly guy. Steve Waugh, totally different, introverted, didn't say anything to the press, and a real fighter. And South Africa went 1-0 up in the one-day series, in the final of the one-day series. And we had 2 matches to play in Sydney. First was always in the MCG, and then 2 matches in Sydney. And the press were giving him a hard time and said, "Oh, Steve Waugh, your first time as captaincy and as captain of Australia and South Africa, 1-0 up in the series. How do you think you can come back?" And he says, "Well, I don't think South Africa can win it because I believe they chance." Exactly. And we started saying, "What is he talking about? We're the number 1 ranked team in the world. How can we be?" But just the fact that we were now talking about it, I think it grew and grew and grew.
And it was carried a lot by the press, I think.
Always. So that's the thing. So if people talk about it, then it's going to happen, sadly.
The last question really made you up into the media. Inzamamul Haq, the run out. Just describe that. I'll show the video to the viewers.
Sure.
Imran Khan on the other end. Sure. Inzamam taps the ball, he takes a run, and you dive and you run. Please describe that to the viewers. The last.
Sure. So just to put
Though I'll tell Jonty averages 35 in Test and 35 in one day. No mean batsman, and he's a batting coach right now for Kings 11 Punjab. Am I right, sir?
Yeah, well,
batting and fielding.
Yeah.
So no mean batter. Jonty is no mean a batter. But yes, the last that run out of Inzamam.
So I think the key for me was
that particular run out.
It was a needed wicket because Pakistan were going great guns. The rain had come down earlier and it was a restricted game. But before Duckworth-Lewis, they just reduced the number of overs you had to play.
I think 38, they came down to 30,
So they were going great guns. Because the ball was slightly wet, it was difficult for our bowlers. And I was standing on the circle, usually I'm quite close. But Inzi was as a 19-year-old, he was hitting the ball everywhere. So we needed the breakthrough, we needed the wicket. And I could see, as a hockey player, as a footballer, tennis, you have peripheral vision. So as soon as I gathered the ball, it actually hit Inzi on the front pad. So it didn't go very far. But I could see out the corner of my eye that Imran was standing there saying no. So I knew he wasn't coming. So Inzi, at 19 already, he was a lumbering young man. So I backed, and it was about playing to my strengths. My strengths were not hitting the stumps because I never used to practice. I used to practice stopping the ball. I was a goalkeeper. My role was on the goal. So I really believed that my strength would be my speed. And then I didn't realize that he was actually coming back quickly. And I felt that the fastest way for me to cover those last 2 meters would be full stretch. Because I was always going to run to the stumps, guaranteed to hit the wickets. But there was suddenly a race between me and Inzamam, and then the fastest way, and a photographer took a fantastic...
Absolutely.
In fact, I spoke to the photographer a couple of months ago, and he was just saying, he actually focused on Inzamam, because he felt something was happening, because he was looking, obviously, through the viewfinder, and he says, he's got 3 pictures of that, because it was...
I know.
It's not on the back, it's not digital, it was actually on film. So he's got 3 pictures. One where he's got Inzamam and my hands coming in, that great picture, and then the third one is my feet, just my feet in the picture.
You're flying actually.
So it was a great piece of photography more than a great piece of fielding, because I've never done it before and I've never done it again.
Anyway, thank you so much, Jonty. It's been an absolutely pleasure. Thank you so much.
Always.
Namaskar. I think that's the better way.